Hello everyone and welcome to Ongeleshe. My name is Dr. Kendi Guantai and this is my daughter Karen.
Hi.
Ongeleshe is a word that I sort of coined up from the Swahili word ongea. Ongea means to converse or to talk to somebody. And so Ongeleshe is sort of colloquial Swahili where we say ni ongeleshe, talk to me, tu ongeleshe. Converse with us, wa ongeleshe, converse with them. So ongeleshe is about conversations. Karen and I live in the United Kingdom, but we are originally from Africa, Kenya in particular. And this segment is very much an Africonscious segment in terms of looking at how we can be Africonscious in the diaspora. So as you can clearly see, and those who know me know that I am very much proud of my roots and proud of where I have come from. And I would like in this segment to have a conversation with Karen to see how I interpret my Africonsciousness, how I experience it, if this is different or if it is the same. So I wanted to find out from Karen what her experience of Africonsciousness is. So Karen, what is Africonsciousness to you and how do you experience it?
I think that Africonsciousness in my life especially is acknowledging first and foremost that I am African and thinking about how I portray that like in my everyday life to the outside world. So I think one big thing, especially for a black woman, is like hair. So I do have wear my natural hair. I do wear a wide variety of natural hairstyles. I think that's one way in which that I try and touch on my African roots. I think it's also through the music I listen to and the food that I eat, and also looking for other people of African descent within the media and businesses as well. So if that's going to an African restaurant or watching African YouTubers or Black British YouTubers as well. I think that's all stuff that does build my Africonsciousness because it's not only hearing stuff from my perspective and your perspective, it's looking out to see what other people are thinking, how other people are portraying their Africonsciousness as well.
So what would you say then that sort of inspired this Africonsciousness in you? Did you at one point just make up your mind and say, I'm just going to have natural hair? Or was it something that, did it come naturally to you? If you think back to the time when you started to become aware of your Africonsciousness, where do you think that came from? And how has it been nurtured, do you think?
I think majority of it is from watching either you or aunties and uncles and how they carry themselves and how they portray their Africanness throughout their lives as well. Because I think in this country it is easier to assimilate whiteness and assimilate being British. However, I feel although it does get you a little bit further society-wise, it is harder because I think in yourself, you're sort of denying a part of you. So I think the natural thing to do was to just accept that I am African and think through how I am going to show that. But yeah, I think it was definitely nurtured through just watching the people around me, and they sort of made it easier and more okay for me to do that, I guess.
Interesting. So you mentioned Black British. So what do you feel you are from an identity perspective? Do you feel you are African? Do you feel Kenyan? Do you feel British? Do you feel Black British? What would you say you actually feel? I know that's a wide array of but because we sort of are in a space where we are forced to think about these things. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
So what do you feel naturally you are? Which space do you say, this is where I comfortably sit here?
That's a tough question, actually. I do think, because I have lived here since I was 5, 6.
Yeah.
So I guess I could say I'm Black British, but I don't think I really am. Say I'm more of an African child that grew up in Britain. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think I can like sort of fit into everything
Yes.
that you said. So I can go into like a room full of like Black British people and fully like understand what they're talking about and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But then I can also go into a room full of like people of African descent and purely African people that like might still live in Africa, might still live here and understand their experiences as well.
Yeah.
So I think I'm sort of like 1 foot in each camp, I think.
So that's interesting because I noticed you're wearing your Kenyan bracelet.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's interesting that in all of those things that you've said, you don't quite identify as Kenyan.
I think
Or would you say you do?
I think I do to an extent,
Mm-hmm.
but I think because I've just been away from it for so long.
Yeah.
And I think here in the UK, you don't meet a lot of Kenyans.
Mm-hmm.
And like a lot of like the media and stuff isn't a lot of Kenyan. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I think I identify more as like an African in general, but I know there are like certain things I do like East African and definitely Kenyan as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think like there are certain things that I just don't understand like the experiences of Kenya just because I haven't been there for so long.
Yeah.
But I think if someone asks me, what do you identify as, the first thing that comes to mind is Kenyan,
Mm-hmm.
because that's all I've really known.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah.
That's interesting because I think when you come to the diaspora, it's the first time when you actually have to think about your identity. I keep saying it's the first time I thought of myself as Black. And it's the first time I thought about being African and what that stands for. And it's interesting that for me, I am very proud of Kenya, the country where I grew up, but I feel increasingly African rather than Kenyan. And I don't really necessarily feel the need to identify predominantly as Kenyan. Of course, when something happens that's Kenya focused, be it a good thing or a bad thing, it might excite me or make me feel really bad if it's something bad. You know, I am patriotic to that degree, but I definitely feel much more African. And I think being in this country, what I have seen is that we are more similar than we are different. Do you get that vibe?
Yeah, and I think here, especially like for our generation, it's not focused on which country you are and stuff like that. It's more of we're building a sort of culture together.
Mm-hmm.
So there is like a Black African like culture within the UK that anyone pretty much from my generation can say that they know it and they understand it and they feel a part of it, no matter like if you north, south, east, west, centre. Everyone sort of like puts in their own like influences in to make this one like big culture where everyone feels like they are a part of it. But I think obviously within that you've got like sub like cultures who say like Nigerian, like Kenyan, Moroccan, anywhere. They've got their own like little part of that culture. They can say like this is what we contributed to it. So I think that has been really good as well, because so everyone sort of feels like they can be accepted and they don't feel sort of like afraid to like step out and like interact with like people from like the other side of the continent. Does that make sense?
So when you have people looking in from outside, so people who are not of African descent looking in, and especially your generation, what do you think they see?
It's a lot of fun, to be fair.
Lots of fun.
Yeah.
You bring the party.
Yeah. Because I think we do have that link, because I know before, like 80s, 70s, there was a bit of a divide between like African and Caribbean, if that makes sense. But I think now it is a lot more like intertwined.
And cohesive.
Yeah. Especially through music as well, there has been a lot more like collaborations, and then through like arts and media, it is a lot more like one rather than like black and white. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think from the outside looking in, it is like the lines have been blurred, so you can't be like, oh, this is purely like British Caribbean culture. This is purely like rich African culture. This is purely that I don't think you can quite distinguish that anymore.
Yes.
From the outside looking in, at least.
Yeah.
But I know that just going off like the stuff that you see on social media and stuff, it does seem like people of African descent within the UK sort of push like the general UK culture. So from like the songs which are like the top 40 to like all the tweets that go like big.
Yeah.
In like everything like on like meme pages and stuff, it's all from, not all of it, but majority of it is from
the African
bit.
Yeah.
So,
and how do you think we, say my generation and perhaps even the older generation that's older than me, how do you see us as different in terms of the way we express our Africonciousness, maybe vis-a-vis how you express yours, or maybe how the same question of how, say, Caucasians or people who are not of African descent looking at my generation, do you think they see anything different in terms of how we are vis-a-vis how you are?
I think that maybe your generation like before you, I think now they're going more back into Africa and seeing like that's where their focus is. Whereas I think for the younger generation, it's more of looking, okay, we are here now, like sense in building the sense of like community and stuff that you would have in Africa, like here, so that if anyone does come over like from Africa, and is growing up here, they still got that sense of community, and they do have like a culture that they know that they can grow up in, which it might not be the same as their culture back home, but it does incorporate that and they still feel like welcome in it. So I think it's just a different focus, but it's the same end. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So sort of building that sense of community here, bringing your Africonsciousness here rather than saying, let me go back to Africa to be African.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. So what would you say for you is the most exciting thing about being African? What do you love about being African?
The food. I love the food. Yeah. And I think, although there's so many like different like dishes like all over the like continent, you can always find like there's stuff which is similar to something from your country.
Yeah.
And if not, you'll still find something that you will enjoy. And I think I like that aspect. And also with around food, it isn't just like, oh, here's your dinner, and then we go off.
Yeah.
It's more of like a family occasion, like just something as simple as like sitting down for dinner.
Yeah.
Or like having like the aunties and uncles over for dinner.
Yeah.
Even from like the cooking, I know like you always rope us all into the kitchen.
Oh yes, I do.
But even like that, like learning like how to cook food from like back home, just by like watching you and stuff like that. So I think that is definitely something I do love about like being African, just like the wide array of food. I think the music as well. Yeah, I do like the music. And I think from there, like that's just stems into like all of the aspects of life as well. Just
So who's your favorite artist at the moment? Okay, well, name 3. I'll not put pressure on you. One.
Wait, like African artists or like just artists in general?
African artists.
I really like Burna Boy at the moment. Yeah, but I think everyone really likes Burna Boy at the moment. Yeah.
What do you think of Salty Soul?
I don't really listen to them, you know. I know that's bad.
Oh, Kenyan bad. It's really bad.
I listen to Diamond Platinum's. He's really good.
Okay. Yeah. So he's got a bit of Swahili going on there.
Yeah, obviously. Got to rep East Coast.
Yeah.
Tiwa Savage as well.
Tiwa,
I really like
she's
her.
really good. Yeah. Oh, fabulous.
Yeah.
And the food, jollof,
pilau every time.
Don't let my West African friends hear that.
So I will say it. Pilau beats the rest of the rice.
Okay. All right then. Is there anything else you would like to add about being Africonscious? What do you think? Actually, I'll ask one more question. What value do you think we bring
to the diaspora as Africans? What do you think our contribution is? It doesn't have to be just arts. It could be arts, could be culture, could be. But what do you think? What flavor do you think we add to this society?
Everything, to be fair.
Okay.
I think to answer that question, you sort of have to think, what would it be like if we weren't here?
Yes.
And even like looking like from, because I feel like a lot of the music that we listen, like pop music now, is very much based around like African music or music that has stemmed from Africa. So I know like now it's a lot of like grime and drill is like prevalent in the top 40. And that's from like children from the diaspora growing up in London and just talking about their experiences. So I think if you took that out, that's like half of the top 40 gone.
Yeah, well, true.
And then you've got a lot more like, even like the beats and stuff, these is a lot more like, I don't want to say urban, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like, just black British music that they have like sort of assimilated and taken into their own music. So that's just from a music perspective. Then even like looking down the high street, think of like all the takeaways you see.
Yeah.
I know it's a lot of like, you always see like Indian, Chinese, but now we've got a lot of
Moroccan.
Yeah, Moroccan,
Ethiopian,
Lebanese as well.
Yeah.
Especially in Leeds as well.
Nigerian. Well.
So if you took all of that away, that would greatly like diminish like what even takeaways even something like as simple as Nando's would be gone.
Yeah,
and that's like a staple.
Yeah.
And then I think in the fashion world, I think fast fashion would be okay. They just say people the same. But I think in the high end world, because you do see a lot in the media of them like using African fabrics and stuff like that. So I think if you took away the African influence a lot, especially the stuff that's been brought out like in the past couple of years, a lot of that would pretty much have to go.
Yeah.
So I think, and even the stuff like business and stuff like that, I think without people of African descent aspiring to be in like these like jobs, I don't think they'd really be able to work.
Yeah.
Even stuff like the fashion that we do have now, it is based around like streetwear and stuff like that, which was predominantly worn by people of African descent in this country. So yeah, I think if you were to take all of us out, this country would change dramatically, and I don't think people realise that as much, because I think we have been here. I know it doesn't seem like that long, but it sort of is, and the impact that we do have here is so massive that we don't make up like a large proportion of this country either. So yeah, I think if we were like to be like removed, like they would definitely feel it.
Yeah.
I don't think they realise that now.
Yeah. True. Oh, that's really powerful. So thank you very much for, for being here and for you all for watching us. And this is the reason why I've got Karen here as well, is to just make sure that as we try to figure out where we are at and where we want to go, that we don't leave the younger generation behind. We are sometimes accused of talking at them, making assumptions about how they view the world. And this is an opportunity for us to interact so that the two perspectives can come together. So thank you very much for watching. Do subscribe, do follow, do ask questions. This is a debate. It's a conversation, and we're really excited to see how this conversation progresses. So thank you very much.